Let's say that you have the idea to create a free speech forum, a place where people of diverse opinions can come and discuss and debate social issues, political issues, religion, philosophy, all sorts of things. You want to see people learn from each other and challenge themselves by opening up their ideas to criticism. You want to see people change their minds and grow as individuals. Unlike all those other sites, people here won't be censored for having the wrong opinions. People on your forums will be free to speak their mind. It's a forum for everybody to talk about everything. Let's say that this is your grand vision, and in theory, that sounds great. But in practice, what ends up happening? Consider Twitter alternatives like Vote, Gab, and Parler. Those sites were supposed to be similar to your free speech forums, where all were welcome to discuss topics free from the censorship and manipulation of their alternatives. But these sites ended up with only one type of person. Your forums are supposed to be for everybody. So where is everybody? Why doesn't the idea of a free speech forum have universal appeal? Let's walk through what happens if you were to launch your free speech site. You set up the forums and attract users, and you're open for business. Immediately, someone is going to argue that they should be able to say the N-word. Someone is going to argue that Hitler was right. Someone is going to argue in favor of pedophilia. Someone is going to argue in favor of something bigoted or sexist or racist or something that offends others. And you can't punish them for that. You can't censor their speech or remove them from your platform because this is supposed to be free speech for everyone. What's going to happen? Your users are going to have to answer the question, do I really want free speech if it means that I'm going to have to associate with these people? A majority of your users are going to answer that question with a no and then leave. So what just happened? Didn't these users join your forums because they were interested in a place where everyone can express themselves freely? Didn't they want their beliefs challenged as they in turn challenge others? So what changed? What sounded good to them in theory ended up way too much to deal with in practice. There's this thing called the Overton window, otherwise known as the window of discourse, which illustrates what views are acceptable in polite society. The views that you can safely express are inside the window. The views that you can't are outside the window, and the window moves over time. What was once unthinkable is now popular, and vice versa. People who seek free speech are usually people who have been banned from all the giant platforms, usually for expressing views outside of this window. So, of course, when they come to your forums, they're going to spread the same views that they couldn't spread elsewhere. Users that left probably prefer to remain inside the window. They want to discuss what's inside the window, what's allowable in polite society, and anything outside of that window is offensive to them. What happened to the users that left was that their beliefs were tested and pushed to the limit as they were exposed to the most extreme views a person could have, and they bowed out. It could be that, one, they don't really believe in free speech after all. They think that some views have no value and should not be allowed to be spread or even held. If it was up to them, they wouldn't allow these views to be given a platform. They only believe in free speech only for certain views, which conveniently include the views that they hold. Or two, they do agree with free speech, but they just don't want to listen. They don't want to be exposed to these offensive views. They don't want to entertain the idea in debate. They don't want to leave their safe space. Or number three, they have a different definition of free speech than you do. When you said everything, you may have meant everything. They were thinking of only socially acceptable views, the kind inside the window. It could be that they draw the line at different places. For example, hate speech, where you might not have a line at all. Either way, they initially agreed with your idea in theory, but when push comes to shove and they find themselves confronted with the harsh reality of what your idea really entails, they change their stance and disagree. So who are you left with? Only the people spreading the views that drove everyone else off, and the die-hard, thick-skinned, free speech supporters that knew what they were getting into in the first place. Coincidentally, as you can see by this graph from the Pew Research Center, Republican conservatives are more likely to say that people take offensive content they see online too seriously, and Democrat liberals are more likely to say that it is too often excused as not a big deal. The same demographic also says that feeling welcome and safe is more important than being able to freely speak your mind. This is why your site gets branded as an alt-right hangout. These are the sorts of people more likely to care about free speech. Conversely, the people who are leaving most likely lean Democrat. The people who remained would love it if the people who abandoned the place would come back. They didn't drive them out. The people who left weren't censored or banned or harassed into leaving. They left of their own free will, but they would be welcomed back with open arms if only they would accept the invitation. One side wants to talk, but the other side doesn't. One side welcomes all opinions. The other side doesn't. It's a bitter irony. Allowing diversity of opinion ensures that you will never get it. So in the end, your forums become homogeneous. You become a bubble, a silo, a safe space, not because you wanted to be one, but because everybody else refuses to associate with you. Well, obviously, you allowed in a Nazi or a racist or a bigot, and that's where the problem began. You could simply not allow certain viewpoints to be shared in your free speech forum, but the more you do that, the less free speech you actually get. Let's say you don't want to do that. What else can you do? First idea, you could give a warning. Maybe when new users are registering, you could put up a big sign saying, "Warning, here be Nazis," or something. You want to let potential new users know what they're getting into so that they aren't blindsided later. This might not actually change anything. Those users who are warned might just never register, so your site might just become homogeneous anyway. A second suggestion, provide some structure. Provide ample space for people to disagree. Look at debate.org. Debates and opinions are all structured in the same way. There's a statement, and people can either agree or disagree with it. Both are featured prominently. Debates are split up into rounds of one response each, where users can vote over who won. Structure like this helps keeps the conversation focused on the issue, not on the users. People will feel more free to speak their mind if they don't have the fear of being personally attacked. People will feel better about disagreeing with offensive ideas as opposed to offensive people. It's just you and a text box speaking your piece either for or against a subject, and this helps. Another suggestion, have an ideal. Have a common bond, something that unites your users. For example, have the forums be centered around a common theme, a hobby, a lifestyle, yoga, coffee, cats, for example. Then, once you have that, allow them to talk about everything else on the side in a separate space. This is the game facts method, where the main draw is video games, guides, and frequently asked questions. But they also have sections on politics, religion, wrestling, anime, social issues, current events, you name it. If a user has a reason to be there, then they can tolerate and perhaps even overlook the offensive beliefs of other users. They're there for the coffee, primarily, for example, not for the Holocaust deniers. You might end up with the best of both worlds. A diverse group of users with a strong anchor that won't easily let people sever ties. And you'll have all the free speech you want. The sad fact is that you can't please everybody. Some people will just be closed-minded and will not tolerate other beliefs. Some people won't want to associate with those that they disagree with. Some people will reject you and you won't get a say in the matter. Some people actually do want to censor ideas. Not everybody believes in free speech. Not everybody has the same idea of what free speech even is. By allowing people to express ideas that others may find offensive, you and your forums are going to be attacked. They'll use guilt by association attacks and call you a Nazi or bigot. Competitors will badmouth you. They'll try and scare people away from your forums. You may not succeed, but at least you'll have tried. The net is vast and infinite, and you can try again. Every individual that is impacted by censorship is an individual that learns why freedom of speech is so important. That means another potential user on board with your ideas and registering for your site. And as the tech giants continue to censor more and more people, they're just creating more and more potential users for you. Have hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. The cultural landscape is shifting. The Overton window is moving. Those who don't move with the window will be left behind and will need a place to go. That could be your place. Your place outside the window will always be seen as a failure to those inside the window. It will always be a place where unacceptable views are allowed to propagate and flourish, and the people inside the window don't like that. Instead of seeking validation and approval from those people who will never accept your views, who will never even engage in dialogue with you, focus on the community that you do have and be proud of it. If you'd like to see an example of these free speech forums, head over to IntoSanctuary.com.